coming into my mind with like asset selection, and obviously due diligence processes is like highly important in any investment. Obviously, we talk about reducing risk every step of the way because investing is inherently risky. It's what makes a good asset is the low risk nature. But like I know you've got about 100-point due diligence check with your your purchasing. So with those due diligence checks, what are like those key checks you're checking with? There's a lot of checks in that question. With asset selection, when you go down that path for your clients.
All right, so I'm going to assume asset selection, you mean whether once you've sort of got an area, whether you go industrial or retail or office and things like that. It's probably the balance between the risk and reward. So like the vacancy versus what cash return you're getting. And then, like I mentioned before, like what you're actually trying to achieve from it. So like office play, you're purely playing a net yield game. You're trying to get as good a net yield as you can, but it's also susceptible to them building like another 20-story tower and completely flooding the market. Hence why you'll generally get a better yield. 20 years ago, that wasn't a thing though. Like office space was really in demand. Like where I grew up in Parramatta, you couldn't even find an office space. Like it was that tight. Now that's a little bit different with interest rates high. And then same thing for industrial and retail. It's working out what kind of vacancy you're going to get versus return. But again, this all goes out the window because it depends what you buy. Like if we're talking retail and it's a little suburban strip shop with a medical center, a cafe, a barber shop, a massage place, a physio, dentist, whatever it may be. That one, you've just got that sample size to look at kind of the risk profile of what stuff renting for, what the vacancies are. But then something like a medical center, that could be around the corner. It could be a freestanding building. The foot traffic of that retail strip has nothing to do with that because people are going specifically for that. So it's getting that kind of balance right with the type of retail that you're buying there. And then industrial, it's probably a bit easier for most people to get a grasp on the kind of location data because you can look at every other warehouse in that complex, what it rents for per square meter, what vacancy period was, when they last sold. Then you can go the next complex within a kilometre radius and look at those. So all of a sudden you get a bit of a tally of 20 different items where you're like, okay, this vacancy was this one was this is what it's renting for, this is how much this has gone up. And you're sort of making a bit more of a business kind of logical decision. Whereas like a little retail strip of 10 shops, the one that's a kilometre away has nothing to do with it. Like how many times have you been to a retail strip and some of them are like ghost town and you go to other ones, there's a huge buzz and people going everywhere and that. And because some of the key anchor tenants play a part in that as well.
Yeah,
Can you mention what that is, like key anchor tenants, like what you mean, just so people can understand that? Because I'm fascinated, like what does make these, those little strips buzz versus ones that don't? Yeah,
the supermarkets is normally the big one. So like, I buy a lot of ones where they're suburban or regional ones where they've got like the big IGA and there's nothing within like a 5-kilometre radius. And then that's where we mentioned on the last podcast, talking to a town planner is really, really, really important because if they're planning to build a Woolworths a couple blocks away, that might kill your foot traffic to your little centre. In saying that, it can actually sometimes benefit as well, depending on what type of asset you have, because that obviously brings car traffic and foot traffic and kind of opens up the area. But yeah, anchor tenants would normally be a major medical, or supermarkets are normally the big ones because that's what brings people in. They go, oh, I'm going to grab a coffee and, oh, there's a Baker's Delight there. I'll go get my bread while I'm shopping as well. And those kind of flow-on effects. So as long as you can get like 60% of the center where it's like critical stuff, they normally do well. You've probably seen the ones where you go on holidays and you go to the coastal towns and they've just got like a fish and chip shop, a bread shop and that, and they're either flourishing or they're completely dead based on the holiday season. So like that's completely different. Oh, that's seasonal. But if you're just kind of going fundamentals, yeah, try to get something with a major supermarket and no competitors coming in the near future.
Yeah, how can you tell, like, with if it's going to benefit or disadvantage it? So you said that if the Woolworths was going, like, say there's a complex near my place, it's an IGA, got a Flannery's, it's buzzing, and they've gone and built a Woolworths down the track, like just down the road. Sorry, how does do you sort of there's obviously risk there. You never really know what the impact of that is, but do you sort of have those due diligence checks that you run?
There's no formal data for it. That's the problem. So I don't want to say gut feel because that's the wrong word, but you just want to kind of analyze the business of how it's going to affect. It's probably more critical if the little shopping centre you're looking at has an IGA or something like that where it may compete. But if it doesn't, if it's just like a little retail strip that doesn't include that, that will probably benefit it because it's a reason for growth of the area as well. It means population's going to grow. Same as like if a Bunnings is opening up nearby, that's a pretty good indicator that the residential market's going to do really well because they don't just go spend 50 mil on a land site to build it there and it not work out. Like there's going to be a lot of houses and population growth, and that's going to get, and just exposure as well. Just like if you can be on like a main road for the retail strip and they've got to drive past that shopping strip to get to Bunnings, that adds to foot traffic and road traffic. It's exposure. So there's that benefit. But again, it's completely dependent on where you're buying. Like a regional area, that's different to CBD. I actually don't like CBD retail. Like if you walk around in Sydney, like 1 in 30 shops is sitting there vacant because there's actually weirdly too much competition than people working from home now. Whereas at least the suburban one, you can go, cool, what's the population? What's it doing? What are they changing from low density to medium density and high density? Are they building any more shops nearby? And that's probably it's a bit of a side note, but like changing from low density to medium or high density opens up a few commercial normally as well, because the councils normally approve where like you see big apartment term, they'll build like a cafe or something down the bottom. That we'd have to be mindful if you own a cafe or something nearby as well. But on the whole, it should improve. If you've got another 500 people moving in nearby, they're going to want coffee, for instance.
Yeah, I also like the fact like it's kind of a bit of a land bank in a way too, with good income. Like say in those regional or outskirts, you get a site, good exposure, it's been there for a while, you get good income, and then in 10, 20 years, if the zoning changes, there's that you get a DA on that thing and sell it off or do it yourself.
That's the benefit, Sam, of commercial. So everything that you can do on residential, when they say, oh look, I'm going to land bank and build townhouses, this, or subdivide, you can still do that on commercial. And you've actually got more options. You can actually go back to residential, which a lot of investors actually do. In some areas, residential is worth more than the actual commercial space. And other ones, it's the opposite way around. You obviously buy residential and then turn it into commercial. But it gives you the same value add opportunities as residential, plus more, because you can do all the other stuff we've spoken about on the first podcast of like changing like the actual property itself, like put it into more retail or split the tenancies up or add solar panel or advertising space, put telecommunications on top or add second streams of income or even off-peak. I've had some clients who've bought some properties. They're sort of like office retail, showroom ones. They actually rent out off-peak times. So they'll have like a jiu-jitsu gym who use it at a different time of the day, and then they use it for something else, for like an office-based one. So you've got all these other options, which sounds attractive. It can also give you analysis paralysis because people get stuck on it. And half my pet peeve with my client calls is, oh yeah, I want below market value with some value add opportunity, blah, 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 blah.